Welcome to the Fuel Podcast, where we explore the foundations under extraordinary lives.
The Fuel Podcast is sponsored by the Christopher Schwartz team at First Choice Mortgage Advisors. NMLS ID 106583. If you're looking to purchase or refinance your mortgage, make the Christopher Schwartz team at First Choice Mortgage your first choice.
And now, here is your host, Chris Schwartz.
What's up, everyone? It's your host of Fuel, Chris Schwartz, and we're here today with Coach Nate Bailey. Coach Nate, what's up, man?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
What's going on? I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah, how about you?
I'm doing well, man. So everyone, Coach Nate comes to us. He's a speaker, author, coach, and he's the lead trainer for Prosperity Revolution, ManWealth, and Shield Maiden. Coach Nate has 2 books out. He's got his podcast, which we'll talk about, Championship Leadership. And one of the big things, we want to give Coach Nate a shout out for his service in the Army. So he served our country, and we want to thank you for that, Coach Nate.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
So, man, you've got, we were just talking about the weather here, and you're in Minnesota. I'm here in Philadelphia in mid-December, so we're both nice and cold. You a little more so, but last time you and I saw each other, the weather was a little nicer, huh?
It was a little nicer, yeah. California, right, for immersion.
Yes, sir. So we were out on the beaches of Orange County, kicking my ass.
Having some fun, rolling around in the sand, yeah.
Yeah, so for everybody listening, I met Coach Nate at an event that I went to called ManWealth Immersion, and it was an amazing experience that really transformed my life, had a major impact on a lot of the things that I do, in my day-to-day, and we had a good time out there, though. I mean, he said beaches of Orange County, and, a lot of physical and, tests there and mental.
Yeah.
But then, that's the stuff that looks good on Facebook and everything.
That's right.
But there was a lot of classroom stuff and a lot of principles and distinction that you guys shared with me that I carry with me. I'm at the office here, but my home office, my journals in my top drawer, I'd pull it out of the drawer. And so, man, I just want to thank you for that, brother.
Awesome, man. Yeah, you bet. And, I'm actually going to see one of your brothers this weekend, Jamie Lasher Thrasher from Iowa. He's coming up. We're going to actually go do a little ice fishing this weekend, but he was in your immersion class.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he lives just like 3 hours from here, so we're close.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ice fishing. All right.
Yeah, man. You ever done that?
No, dude.
No, they don't do any ice fishing out there?
No ice fishing. No ice fishing here in Philadelphia.
Well, we're going to have to take care of that one of these days, man.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. Well, definitely tell Jamie I said hi. We'll give a shout out to the Lasher Thrasher here.
Lasher Thrasher. You got to come to immersion to figure out what that's all about. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Get people out there, man. It's an awesome event. So, kind of getting into what we do here at Fuel, Coach Nate. All kidding aside, I mean, you do some pretty amazing stuff in your life, and that's why we want to have you here. We want to talk about it and have you share with our listeners, and some of the people will get this out there on YouTube that are watching this. Kind of what we call is your fuel story, and just to give people a little insight. I mean, Coach Nate has, like I said, he's been in the Army. He's a platoon leader. He's done Kokoro, which if you don't know what Kokoro is, look it up. Just reading it will probably make you cry. It is, what is it, a 50-hour SEAL fit?
Yeah, SEAL fit Kokoro. It's 50. Well, ours was we ended up going 52 hours. And it's led by Navy SEAL, retired and active duty Navy SEALs, and they kind of put you through a small taste of what Hell Week is, right, for the actual guys that are trying to become SEALs. So yeah, it's intense.
Yeah.
No sleep in those 52 hours, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. No sleep, 52-hour intense, like, workout kind of CrossFit type stuff times 1,000, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And we were just kind of going back and forth too, before we kicked on here. Some of the races that you've done, you've done 100 miles.
Yep.
And you got something else coming up too. You're
gonna. Yeah, I'm. This year I want to do what's called the Moab 240. So it's 240 miles, and so that's a big race, right? It's like, it's a lot longer. It's a lot further than 100 miles, and 100 miles is nothing to bat an eye at. So yeah, it's continuing to push myself and see what I can do and what I'm capable of, and it also gives me, you can't cut corners if you're going to try and run 240 miles. So it forces you to stay in shape and to continue to work. And so I'm excited. That's in October. So I got some time to build up to it.
Man, that's got to be some serious training, man.
Yeah.
240 miles. That's sick, man.
Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly what we're, trying to share with our listeners too. Like, you don't just wake up and decide, hey, I'm going to run 100 miles. I'm going to run 240 in October and lace up your sneakers and get out there. So you share with us, your, not just for the race, but just in general with the things that you've achieved in your life. And, is there anything that fuels you, that's your foundation that gets you through this stuff that you could share with us to help inspire some of our listeners here?
Yeah, you bet. So, I don't know. I always say, like, if I can do it, anyone can do it, really, if they wanted to. But that's, that's another conversation. Why would you want to do some of these things? But for me, again, it just forces me to be really disciplined and to, because you can't cut corners if you're trying to run 100 miles or the Seal Fit Kokoro event. It's one of the most extreme endurance events out there. I did an Ironman a long time ago. I'm going to do another one this year. Actually, a buddy of mine, he's doing one and wanted me to do it with him, and it'll be good preparation and training for the 200.
It's like an appetizer, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it really is when you're looking at a 240 mile run. So yeah, it's but I enjoy it, and as a coach, if I'm like we're talking about it being at immersion or putting you guys through the different workouts and evolutions that we do on the beach, I love it because I can stand there and not like bat an eye, just knowing that whatever I'm asking you to do, I've done, times 100, right? Like I've done way more than that. And so it's not an issue for me to stand there and push you guys as hard as I do, or push the women as hard as I do, because I know what they're really capable of, because I've experienced it myself. And so I think that's just important to me, to live to this highest standard. It's also important to me. I got 3 little kids. I want to be an example for them and set the example for them of what it's like to set big goals, and then also to do the work required to get it. And then it forces me to be the training, the preparation that it requires. It really does force me to level up in all areas of my life at the same time, because I don't want to, you can imagine, to train for an Ironman or to train for a 240 mile race, it requires a lot of time to do that. And I don't want to ever do that at the expense of my family or at the expense of business, even the coaching clients that we have. So I have to be really intentional about when I'm going to train and how I'm going to fit it in around everything else. And so it really does force me to be that intentional and focused in everything else that I do as well. So I really do see it overflow and lift me up, and in all areres. And it's just cool to be able to say you ran 100 miles. Let's be real. Like,
yeah, there's nothing else, man.
But it's it's not cool enough to go through all of the pain to get it. So, right. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Or else everyone would do it,
Yeah. So, yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit about why I do it and why I continue to do these things. I just really am, I'm just always curious. Like, I know it's possible because other people have done it before me. So, So like, can I do it? Right. And I think, yeah, we're really capable of doing just about anything we put our minds to. And, just a lot of people settle, and I don't want to be, and that's okay if that's what they want. That's not good for me, man. I don't want to settle and just look back and then with a bunch of regret and wish that I would have done this or done that. So I'm living it.
Yeah, man, you're definitely living it, and it's so fun to just to follow along, and like you said, it's not not everybody's going to get up and say, hey, I want to run 100 miles, but we all have things in our lives that we may want to do that
Totally.
look like a 100-mile race. It's like there's no way I can do that, and whatever it is. I mean, with you, after you do these things, does that translate into you looking at other things in your life like, well, shit, I just, crushed a 100-mile race. Like, so what might have seemed like a big issue over here that I have to deal with at work or with my family, like, I got this.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. And, I think, just like the training forces me to level up, but yeah, it's just like, when you experience, I mean, there's just so many lessons that you can, if you're present to them, you can extract that help you in all situations, right? Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that can happen throughout a 100-mile run that you have to push through and persevere through, so that when you face similar challenges, like you said, in your relationship or in your business, you just like, hey man, I've been here before. I got this. I know we can do this. We can get this done, or we can make it through this time. So yeah, absolutely. 100%. It's huge. And so, physically for me is just a big area that really drives everything else. And for others, it might be a little bit different, right? Some people, maybe it's in business or whatever it is, but like you said, it might not be 100 miles for you. Maybe it's like a 5K. It could be like a 100-miler for some people, right? I remember when it was kind of like that for me. I remember when I first started running, and 2-mile run was like, dude, I felt good. Like, oh man, I just ran 2 miles. That's awesome. And now, of course, your perspective changes the more you push. And when you go 100 miles, it's like you're not even getting started. But, it's just all about perspective, and everybody you just start from where you're at, right? Everybody's in a different place. And I think it's awesome when people get off the couch and go run for the first time, or go do that first 5K, and they got that medal and they got a big smile on their face. I think that's incredible. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I know when we met, you had shared with us that, there was a point, I guess, leading up to some of the things that you did. I don't know if it was Kokoro or what, that you were out of shape. You were.
Yeah, Kokoro was a big one. Yeah, I was 275 pounds when I signed up, and like I knew no way, I wasn't going to be able to make it through that 52-hour experience, like if I didn't lose some serious weight and do some serious work. And so that was really kind of, I'd done the Ironman probably like 8 years before that, and then kind of let myself go over a period of time. And so that was really the catalyst to me running 100 miles and me, getting ready to run 240, right? And it all starts with, again, that first mile, and building up to that. I decided when I was going to run the 100 miles, it was in March, and I hadn't been doing a lot of running, and it was middle of, we just talked about the weather. It was, March, we're just it's still cold. There's still snow on the roads. Like, it's not the greatest time to get out and do a bunch of running, but it's kind of that time of year where it's starting to turn. And I gave myself 3 months. And so, I was probably a little, my eyes were bigger than what I could actually chew, right? And so, I failed the first 2 times, but I just persevered and was like, hey man, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make this happen. And in October of that year, so it took me about 7 months to finish it and to do it, but I did it, right?
It's amazing. And just to even do the stuff that we talked about that led up to it, to qualify, to attempt to do it's pretty wild. So, if you guys are listening, check it out. It's pretty wild. It's the Kokoro, 50-hour seal fit. Just Google it. You'll find it.
Yeah, you'll find plenty of stuff on it. Yeah.
And then, dude, did you we talk about foundation here on Fuel, and like, did this stuff start like, were you always wired like this? Did this start when you were younger? Did you have any people like or experiences that you really used as a foundation to build that helped you, kind of get through this stuff and that you translate to?
I think I, in a way I kind of was always wired for this. From a very young age, I was always out playing and doing sports and athletics. And I remember from a very young age, like the Wild Order Sports, they used to have the Iron Man on. And I think you just kind of tuck things away at the back of your head that like, oh, that looks like pretty cool.
Looks pretty cool.
I'll probably do that someday, but you don't really know if you'd actually do it. And then yeah, I did an Ironman. And then, you read stuff. I remember for the first time reading about like ultra marathons and it blew my mind. It literally blew my mind that someone would go and run 100 miles.
Still blows my mind, Nate. Still blows my mind.
Yeah. And I was like, man, I don't know that I could ever do that, but that would be kind of cool to see if I could.
See, I don't.
And that was probably early 2000. You're like, nah, that's cool. I'm good.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I ended up doing that, right? And so, I remember, kind of the same thing, right? I remember people coming to speak at the schools to us, and I thought that was cool that these people would that's what they did. They would go around from school to school and do these presentations, and we'd get out of class and get to go to the the assembly room and listen to them, and they were motivating and inspiring people. And I just remember in the back of my head, like how cool that was. Right. And probably a small part of me was like, that'd be awesome to be able to do that someday. And well, I'm kind of doing that right now. So I'm not going to schools, but that's kind of what I do as a coach and a speaker.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I like doing, I like doing things that are challenging. And now it's like, I think it's time, 100 miles, I didn't excel at it, right? I didn't really excel at the Ironman. I kind of did excel at Kokoro, which I don't know if it surprised me or not, but I just I felt really strong going through that. So I know I'm capable of way more. And so I've hired a coach, this gal that she's awesome. And she's done a lot of these crazy things, like way crazier than I have. And so she's helping me prepare for this year and for this 240 and some other things that I have. There's one called the Badwater 135, which is literally the hottest part of the year through Death Valley, 135 miles. And it's just brutal. And again, it's kind of something where,
was Goggins? Did he do the bad?
Oh yeah, Goggins has done that
I thought
a number of times. A lot of the great ultra runners have done it. She did. So this gal, her name is Lisa Smith Batchins. I'll give her a quick shout out. She did the quad. So she's like, yeah, I've done the double. I'm like, so hang on a second. You've done that back, 4 times. She's like, yeah.
What?
And I'm like, oh, that's next level, right? I mean, dude.
Yeah. So, that's just crazy.
So I think, also, so there's a point there too, right? It's like when you start to do some of these things, you start to hang out, you start to be in different circles with different people too, right? So now because of Kokoro, because of the ultra marathons, because of my podcast, because of your podcast, you get to talk to people that I just interviewed, the Iron Cowboy. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He did 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. Dude, what? Just he's got a documentary on Netflix. Check it out. I mean, that is insane, right? And so I literally just interviewed him at his house in Utah last week. And so now I'm in these circles with these people that 100 miles, it's cool. But to them, it's no big deal. I've done Death Valley quad.
Right.
Okay, all right. So there's
just sounds cool to even say that.
Right?
It's not even 4 times.
Yeah. Talk to me, later when you really.
Yeah.
So.
Dude, and that's how really how Fuel came about, is to be able to share with people hey, you can do so much more. You can tap into that fuel for whatever it is for you. Obviously, Coach Nate, for you, the physical piece of it really, resonates with you, and allows you to push yourself, to levels beyond what probably you thought you were capable of, and what people on the outside just think is crazy, right?
Yeah.
So you're just able to, use whatever that fuel is to take things to the next level. And that's what I hope that people listening to this podcast will get out of it. I mean, there's so many limitations that we put on ourselves, that we can't do this, you can't do that. And, the physical piece, what you're talking about, it's just an extreme way for someone to just say, holy shit, that's possible.
Yeah.
But there's other areas of our lives that you can do that in, man. We limit ourselves. Coach Nate, I'll share, my experience up on Holy Hill. When I was at ManWealth Immersion, there was one point where you had us, doing some runs, and this was after, a couple mile run, walk, ruck with 50-pound sandbags, 100-pound sand, all this stuff that we were doing. And you had, we were tired, and you had us, running a couple laps around the electric thing there, whatever the hell that is. And, it was like, as soon as you were done, you got to sit down and you got to take a break. So, that was your motivation, to get that shit done so that you could sit down. And you know what I mean? And I was in the lead, and I was feeling good.
Yeah.
And, and I took my eye off of, what was going on around me, and just kind of, went from first gear to third. And just like that, man, a couple people passed me, and, I had a couple more laps to run. So
the Lasher Thrasher might have been one of them that passed you at the very end. Like, you let up, and I remember that. Yeah. It was a great lesson for you though, right? Like, where else are you doing that, right? You kind of quit right before the finish line.
Yeah. And, that is obviously, I'm still talking about it now. So there's been times where I've wanted to quit at the finish line, or you think you're at the finish line.
Yeah.
Right. And then boom, somebody passed you just like that. Cause I didn't want to quit. I wasn't tired. I had it in me.
Yeah. No, you totally did. Yeah. Yeah.
But I thought I was
eased up. Yeah.
I thought I was at the finish line,
Yeah.
and, so yeah, man. So I just, to kind of talk about, switch gears with, we talked about a lot of the physical stuff and how that translates to other areas, but you really do focus with people on what you call the big four, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, to talk about, the big four real quick, what are you, outside of the physical?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Big four is physical, the big four areas of your life, right? Physically, spiritually, relationally, and financially. And it really is possible to, what they say, quote unquote, have it all, right? It's not easy.
Yeah, Nate, I mean, we were talking about all this physical stuff, and, one of the other things that you work on with people is, like you said in the beginning, it's great it takes a lot of time and energy and effort to put a 100-mile race, under your belt. So that can come, if you're not careful, at the expense of your business, your family, your spirituality. How do you balance that and work with people through the different programs that you have to make sure that you don't get things out of balance, and you can, like we were talking about, have it all before we had the IT glitch there?
Yeah, that happens, right? Yeah. So the big four, like you said, the big four areas, right? Physically, spiritually, relationally, and financially. And, it's important to focus on each one and be intentional. Like, what they say, right? Like, what you water grows, and what you don't wilts and dies. And it's the same thing in life. A lot of us will focus on the areas that we're really strong in, or that we're really good at. That's for many typically like physically or inside your business. And then you kind of let the other ones just kind of go by the wayside. And so as a part of ManWealth or Shield Maiden in immersion, it's not good enough for us to just be great at one area, but to, really thrive in all areas. I think that's how we all grow up with this image of like just having, a good life, a great life, and in all areas, not just one or two. And so it's just really comes down to, if you want to break it to its simplest form of just doing a little bit in each area every day, right? Just being intentional and focused in each area. You know, we have what we call the ATMs, where you just every day you're watering each area. You're showing up. You're doing a little bit of work, and when you do take small steps every day, you look back at the end of 12 weeks. You look back at the end of 6 months, a year, and you realize, like, man, I've accomplished a lot of great things, and I'm living a good life because of it, by just being super intentional and taking some simple steps every day in all of those big 4 areas, so that you're not just one dimensional.
Yeah. And that was for me, the biggest takeaway from ManWealth Immersion. And we'll talk about guys stuff when we wrap this up at the end. How you can find more information on all these things that Coach Nate's talking about. He'll let you know. But ManWealth Immersion for me, I went out there with one objective and said, hey, you know what? I need to get my business to this level. I want to level up my business. And when I got there and went through the experience and the immersion, so to speak, that was the least of the things that I cared about.
Yeah.
For being out there.
Happens almost every time, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the awesome thing. And I've invested a lot in myself, in coaching, personal development, just listening to books and consuming that stuff. And, I have to say to everybody listening, man, what Coach Nate and Satema are doing there, it is a unique experience. And, it's either, a group of guys in ManWealth Immersion or a group of women in Shield Maiden. And so we'll talk about it. You can tell people how to find out more. But what I want to do now as we wrap things up here, I'm going to hit you with a little rapid fire.
Oh, let's do it.
All right. So rapid fire goes like this. You're stuck on an island, and we're going to hit you with 3 questions.
All right.
All right. And so the first one, and there's always a disclaimer for this one. We're going to ask you who you're taking with you. But before I do that, I'm going to give you the disclaimer to keep all your family and friends. We don't need anybody. All
right.
we know that the wife would be there, the kids.
Yeah.
So
okay.
outside of your family and your loved ones, anybody, dude. Who you taking with you?
I already know, man. I'd like to shout out to your wife. King Louie's got to come with me to the island. Man. I'm sorry. I gotta take King Louie with me.
King Louie. Oh man, King Louie is my wife and now my cat that I've inherited, and he's awesome, but he is definitely, you're gonna have to.
He is the alpha of the house.
Yeah, he's the alpha. We were talking earlier, and he's probably sitting on the couch right now, drinking a beer while I'm at work. Awesome, man. Well, you'll have to fight Lori for King Louie to go there with you.
I figured that.
I love it, dude. All right, second question. What book would you take with you? What is a book, and I know that you've read, that's had an impact on your life, that you would take with you outside of your 2 books? Of course, we know you'd be reading that.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to the 100-mile mindset. I would, I read a lot, so there's a lot of books, but one that I've been reading and spending a lot of time with is called Sacred Pace by Terry Looper. It's a really, really awesome book, and just kind of from an incredible business guy. It's a Christian book as well, but it's just the process that he came up with for himself and for his life. And it really rules like how he makes decisions, not just in business, but in all areas. And it's called the Sacred Pace. So that's a big one for me recently.
Awesome. The Sacred Pace. I haven't heard that one. So
yeah,
that's the beauty of this. I get to add.
Right. Yeah, check it out. It's good.
You got a library of books to check out. Cool. All right, and last one's another fun one. You got one food. What are you taking with you? It could be anything.
Oh man. Well, I mean, I don't know. Can I cook?
You can cook. It can already be made. It can be junk food.
Right. I'm a big steak. Like I enjoy a good ribeye. So probably that. Like that's kind of on the top of my food chain. Yeah.
All right, so we got a big ribeye out there. Yeah, you better be able to cook, man. You're stuck on an island. You better.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
So, cool, man. All right, well, with that, we're going to wrap things up. Coach Nate, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us on Fuel. And, we talked about a lot of good stuff that you're involved in, that you're doing now. You got the podcast, you got the, the immersion, the Shield Maiden, all these things. How do we find out more about you, and how do we find these things?
Yeah, you bet. So I really have almost all that info on my website, NateBaileySpeaks.com. We got info on the immersions, info on, my podcast. You could also, I'd love to give a free copy of my book to your listeners. They could just go to 100milemindset.com and you get I'm giving away the free audiobook. You just put your email in and it doesn't cost anything. You just get the download automatically.
Awesome, man. See that? It pays to be a listener of Fuel.
That's right.
Check that out, guys. Download Coach Nate's book. It's on us here at Fuel, and compliments of Coach Nate at Championship Mindset. So with that, man, we're going to wrap it up. I just want to ask anybody that's listening to this, if you got some value out of it, do me a favor, share this with some family, friends, share it on social, give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. And on that note, we're out.